In the last video, we did a little bit of environment setup, and now we're ready to start working on our first project. So let's talk about what we're going to make. All right, so we're going to start off with a very simple first little application. We're going to make a little tiny application that's just going to make a network request to some outside API, fetch some data, and then we're going to try to print that data inside of our terminal. And that's it. Now with this first application, I'm not trying to teach you any specific syntax or anything like that. I just want to show you why we use TypeScript in general. So as we write this program, we're going to accidentally, quote unquote, kind of accidentally, introduce one or two bugs into our application. And then we're going to very quickly see that TypeScript has the ability to help us catch those bugs while we are writing our code, as opposed to when we execute our code. So again, the point of this application is just to show you the typical workflow of TypeScript. That's it. All right, so with that in mind, let's talk about the flow that we're going to go through to actually build this application. So step one, we're going to take a look at the API that we're going to use to fetch some data. After that, we're going to create a new project directory. We're going to create a package.json file inside there, and then install Axios as an NPM module. Axios is a little module that we're going to use just to make a network request. If you've never worked with this module before, totally fine. Axios doesn't really have anything to do with TypeScript. We're just going to use it to make a network request. That's it. So once we do all that setup, then we'll start to write out some code. All right, so on to step number one. Let's take a look at the API that we're going to use to fetch some data. So here's a link to the API right here on the screen. Now this is a fake API. In other words, it serves up fake data that we can use just for like testing or learning purposes. In other words, it's perfect for what we are trying to do right now. So I'm going to pull up that documentation inside of a new tab, and then scroll on down to a section called Resources. All right, so here's resources right here. So these are all the different types of records that we can make a request to or attempt to fetch from this API. We're going to attempt to fetch this list of to-dos right here. So I'm going to click on that /todos link. As soon as I do so, you're going to see a ton of information appear on the screen. You'll notice that on my screen, it appears to be very nicely formatted. If it looks like a big blob of text on your screen, that's totally fine. I've got a little Chrome extension to automatically format JSON data for me. So if we make a network request to this URL right here, we're going to get back a big list of fake to-do items. Now we don't really need this whole list. I just want to try to fetch like one individual item. So to fetch just this first item off the list, or the to-do with an ID of 1, we can modify the URL up here slightly. So at the very end of the URL, I'll add on /1, like so. Once I visit that link, I'll then see a single to-do appear on the screen. So this is the exact data that we want to fetch. I want to fetch this data inside of our application, and then just try to print out some information from this to-do to our terminal. Like I said, that's it. All right, so now that we understand the API we're going to work with, we'll now flip on over to our terminal and create a new project directory. So over inside of my terminal, I'm inside of a workspace directory of sorts. You can place this folder anywhere on your machine that you want to. I'll make a new project folder inside of here, and I'm going to call it fetch.json. I'll then change into that directory, and then I'm going to generate a new package.json file inside of here. Remember, package.json files are used to record all the different dependencies that we install into a project. Normally that's the case for JavaScript projects, but it's the same thing for TypeScript as well. We record dependencies inside of a package.json file. So to generate that file, I'll run npm init-y. That's going to generate that file, and now I can safely install that Axios module. Remember, Axios is going to be used just to make that network request. So to do so, I'll run npm install Axios, like so. Now Axios is really small, so this should install rather quickly. Once it's all done, I'll then open up my code editor inside this folder, and we'll start to work on our project. All right, so here we go. I should see inside of here the package.json file and the node modules directory, which has that Axios project or module that we just installed. So now that we've got everything set up, let's take a quick pause right here, and we'll start to write some code in the next video.